The triggered empath. What does that mean? I often get calls from people and when they introduce themselves, very quickly into the conversation they announce, I am an empath. Red flags for me when I hear that. First of all, every healthy person is an empath. First Nations people, Indigenous people who still live in the traditional ways are probably more so that way than industrialized nations. But if you're healthy, you are sensitive, you're telepathic, you're psychic, and you pick up on animals and what they're feeling and saying. You can talk to trees and rocks and feel the energy of the earth. Some people more than others. Some are more talented, just like saying everybody could take banjo lessons and play the banjo. But when someone tells me they're an empath, that usually means I am very sensitive and very emotional, and I have a hair trigger. So anything you say or do might set off my emotions, and it will be your fault because I have warned you that I am sensitive. Well, I'm here to say I'm an empath also. And in the early years before I was healed, I had to isolate a lot. I ran off and licked my wounds a lot. I got hurt by just about everything that happened and had to figure out a way to deal with it. But now that being an empath is cool, an unhealed, unbalanced empath means I'm someone walking around with a lot of unhealed wounds and a hair trigger, and everybody has to walk on eggshells around me because I've warned you that I am upset easily, hurt easily. My old wounds get triggered by the slightest thing. Half the time I don't even know what's going to trigger me. And now I have to get upset, or I not have to, but I will get upset, and you have to do something about that. I actually call that narcissism, not malignant narcissism, but narcissism. I am so sensitive. We all have to be very careful around you. Now, if you're in a healing journey, I don't have any problem with someone saying that, and it's true, and handle with kid gloves, I got it. But if you're walking around with that as an identity, what I hear is a proud voice. I had trauma as a child. And very often when I hear the childhood story, it does not meet the qualifications of trauma. Difficult, yes. Challenging, yes. But pretty, let's say, stuff that could be healed with a little bit of work and learning how to regulate your nervous system and rebuilding your nervous system. You may think I sound cold and hard, but I've had to do this work on myself. And now I can be around lots of people that I used to not be able to tolerate because I was so sensitive and I felt everything. What a pain in the ass. So I still not only feel everything, I don't take it on. I feel it in a balanced way. I can make choices about it. I can also decide to not feel it, like not my problem, not my vibe, not my energy. For some reason, being an empath is now romanticized. And I guess I would say that I'm much more interested in how much work have you done in healing? What exactly do you expect people to do when you announce you're an empath? What are your triggers? How do you act when you are dysregulated? Now I can start believing you're working on yourself. Like if you say, I'm an empath and angry voices set me off because I'm still in therapy about my father's temper. Okay, I got it. People do not call me up and say, I'm a psychic medium, I'm a telepath. They always just pull the empath card. And that's because it is a way of excusing all behaviors and abdicating all responsibility for how you might react or feel. And kind of putting everybody on notice that you have to take care of that person's feelings and their trigger points. The meditations that I work with and the work I do with people actually become much more empathetic. But what they're feeling now is not the anxiety and fear and defensiveness and terror of their possible trigger points that may go off any minute, like nitroglycerin or dynamite. Instead, they start to feel how they're feeling more quickly and more honestly. Now they can do self-care instead of getting triggered. Now they can set a boundary instead of fleeing into the dark tunnels of their unhealed wounds. Now they can pick up on other people's feelings when they want to, instead of getting kind of sucked in all the time because they are emotionally bleeding all the time from unhealed wounds. So they can pick up on other people's feelings if they want to, gently keep a barrier up if they don't want to, help other people if they want to, don't help other people if they don't want to. Feel the joy of nature and animals or a child laughing, and be able to be around someone's grief and anger without spinning out for the next month. To be an empath does not mean to be a child. It does not mean to be emotionally immature. It does not mean that you are allowed to get triggered about anything at any time and react to that and punish the people around you because you got triggered by your wounds that perhaps you don't even know about and they certainly don't know about. Being an empath in a balanced and healed fashion typically means you don't put up with a lot of crap. Why should you? You can find out that maybe someone is pushing their emotions onto you and deal with that non-verbally, energetically, or verbally. Because you've learned how to regulate your nervous system, you stay balanced in more situations for longer periods of time, and like a grown-up, you can ask for what you want and what you need from other people. You can accept no as an answer. You can accept a boundary without getting triggered. I also want to point out that every child that has been traumatized will grow up with telepathy, psychic abilities, connections to the other world, and being empathetic. If they can move into adulthood with some sense of sobriety, which is hard to do, hopefully they'll get on a healing journey and also learn how to live in this world, the 3D world, in a more healthy fashion. Why is this so? Oh, I'm plowing up a hill here, sorry. Because when you're a child, you are powerless. Your brain is not fully developed. You don't have the cognitive skills, the neurophysiology, and hormonal biology to deal with trauma. So you connect with the other world instead, and that saves your life. You learn to be able to predict when your drunk father will come home. You will know it even though no one else does. You will know if he'll be so drunk you have to hide under a table, or he'll come home and crash out and fall asleep and you'll be safe. You'll be able to read minds. You'll know before your mother goes into a rage that she's going into a rage. You will even have a sense of perhaps car accidents happening. You might talk to people who have crossed over. You might channel. You might be a medium. You might talk to spirits. And all of that is wonderful, but it's born out of trauma because Earth isn't working for you as a child because you're suffering. So what you do is reach out to the unseen world. By the way, to me, this gives us evidence that the unseen world is absolutely real, because we see this in every child with a trauma childhood, how gifted they are. Now the challenge is, as you grow up, those gifts will stay with you. But now you got a lot of repair work to do. How do you feel your own emotions? How do you have a healthy relationship? How do you solve problems? How do you hold down a job? How do you regulate your emotions? How do you learn to stop running away from this world in order to connect only with the unseen world? If you don't do this work, you'll remain gifted, but probably a substance abuser or an eating disorder or a severe mental health issue. I'm not saying this is a threat. I'm saying this from observation. At the best, you might be able to find a way to live your life, regulate your overeating, your sugar, your drinking, etc., and keep your unhealed wounds at bay and pass that energy back on to your children. But I will tell you this also. One of the things about old age is it slows you down. And when you slow down, whatever you're running from will catch up. I think it's one of the reasons humans get to have such a long period of old age. It allows them, or perhaps forces them, to finally heal and evolve as a soul. So you can dodge stuff your whole life, but it will catch up with you in your old age. Again, not a threat, observation. So having gifts is only part of the equation. If you listen to the telepathy tapes, what you've heard some of the kids saying to their parents is, telepathy is only part of it. You've got to learn to regulate your emotions. You've got to learn to, stay in your body when I'm having a hard time. And even the telepathy kids, or if it's apraxia, which they think it is, perhaps, instead of autism, have to, no matter their telepathy and being on the hill and talking to the God consciousness, they still have to learn not to poop in their pants. They have to learn to make their muscles work to work the spelling boards. They have to learn to deal with their emotions. They have to work with the frustration of the physical world. Telepathy doesn't solve everything. It's simply a gift, like being a psychic, being an empath, etc. So if you identify as an empath, and you tell everybody pretty quickly that you are one, I guarantee that you're putting them on notice that they are now responsible for your emotional well-being. Even if you deny it and say that's not true, in practice, it's going to be true. If you tell people, I've had a traumatic childhood, and there's no additional sentence talking about how you're working on it or have been working on it or how far you've come, I would say that you have built up a victim identity and you're living off of that, because it's very popular right now to be a victim. It's, trauma is in. Being an empath is in. It didn't used to be. In the olden days, pioneer days, and even in my childhood, it was like, deal with it. And I'm not saying that's a good answer either. Not that attitude. But, we hear that statement, from surviving to thriving. That's where you want to get to, thriving. You want to be a healthy, resilient, internally strong, smart about self-care and regulating your nervous system, empath. And then you don't have to announce you're an empath. When I meet other people who have gifts, I can sense it right away. They can sense it from me. One time I walked into a bank outside of Sedona back in 1989, 1990. And there's a woman in a suit with a braid down to her butt. I was with staff members, faculty. I was running a school. And I left my staff members, asked them to go take care of banking business. And I walked right up to that manager and I said, "Who the hell are you? And why are you in this bank?" And it turned out she was the bank manager. But she was also like an extraterrestrial and a psychic and amazing. And we just recognized each other immediately. And she called me over and we just had a long talk about everything. It was the coolest thing. She said that she was a candle who had been put in a dark corner. None of her staff knew who she was. And she had a support network, but not at work. I had another dramatic type of thing when I was taking a PhD class. And this woman walked up to me in the first day of class and said, "You're one of the shiny people. I'm going to sit next to you." And I instantly knew what she meant, what she was talking about. This is what I mean about recognizing each other without having to do this kind of big announcement.
Oh, I don't know you.
All right, just stop for a minute. There was a human. So if you have built an identity around your traumatized childhood and being an empath, I would really encourage you to move on from there. You will be an empath. Why do you have to announce it? I mean, I don't have people who walk up and say, "Hi, my name is Joey, I'm gay," or "My name is Sarah and I'm a Christian," or "My name is Josh and I'm a Jew." It's like, yeah, and what? What about that? Because you're more than that. You're more than an empath, and you're more than your traumatized childhood. If you are in the process of healing because you're hypersensitive, you get triggered easily, you can't regulate your nervous system, I would bring those up as questions. Like if people want to come to a meditation class and they might say, I'm working on a lot of stuff regarding my father's abuse with me or my mother's alcoholic rages. Do you think your meditation class would be a good fit? Then that's a really intelligent, specific way of bringing up where you are right now, as opposed to saying, well, I'm an empath. And it's always in that tone of voice, like I'm so special. But like I said, to me, everybody is an empath, some more so than others. And yes, there are lots of people who don't feel their feelings, who are drugged out, sugared out, coffeed out, social media out, etc. And they don't. I get it. But if you run around as a trigger-happy empath, I feel sorry for the friends and family close to you, because it means they now have to walk on eggshells around you all the time, because you don't know what triggers you. You haven't told anybody. You just say you get triggered. And if you're in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, and you're still talking about your traumatized childhood and that you're an empath, I would just say to that, I'm so sorry. Ouch. And I hope you get to a place of thriving. Hawk. Red-shouldered hawk. I hope you get to a place of thriving soon, so you can start enjoying life and not spend your whole time tiptoeing around trying to avoid getting hurt or triggered. I've done this work on myself. I know what a big difference it made from being hypersensitive to what I would call a more balanced, authentic, normal, bigger version of me that can tolerate so much diversity in experiences, where I don't have to be so careful about where I go and what happens. I know that if I don't like a situation, I can get out of it or try to change it. Where I know that if I feel a bad vibe coming from someone, I can do something about it to take care of myself long before it turns into something. And if someone goes off on me, I can find a way to handle it. And no one else is responsible for my reactions. And they're not responsible for my emotional well-being, unless they're perhaps my therapist or maybe a healer or something. But even then, those folks are responsible for helping teach you to recover. They are not 100% responsible for your emotional well-being, because that just turns you into an infant instead of an adult. I hope this helps. There's a giant empath industry out there, empath workshops, etc. The ones I've seen, to me, they continue to prolong staying stuck in this hypervigilant, oversensitized state, as opposed to going back to healing the wounds that opened up the nervous system to this hypersensitivity in the first place. And I want to say that I am a recovering empath, like I'm a recovering codependent, which means I will be an empath for the rest of my life and working on that so I have a fun, resilient, broad, diverse life where I can have a lot of different experiences without having to recover from them. Just like I am a recovering codependent, which means I still tend to be a people pleaser, and I still tend to give my power away to others, and I'm going to work on that till the day I die. But I don't have to announce it to people, especially in any way, to make them responsible. I can ask for support, and I've done that. I've said to people, for example, I tend to be an overgiver, so please support me in not doing that. Just like I have done that for some people who are also overgivers, I won't let them overgive to me. I ask them to stop and question what they're doing. So asking for support is great, but announcing you are something and leaving it at that and justifying why you're like that, like I'm a codependent and this is why, okay, there's nowhere for me to go with that except to either take care of you or leave, because I don't hear you doing the work for yourself to get yourself in a better place. So maybe I can leave you with this. If you are an empath who gets triggered easily, be more specific. Instead of saying I'm an empath, why not say, I was physically beaten when I was a child, so I have a hard time sitting close to people. Okay, that's a nice statement. We can work with that. Now that's not this broad label. I'm an empath. Watch out. Anything can set me off. I'm a ticking time bomb. I hope this helps. I love all the woo-woo stuff. I love all the energy stuff. There's parts of psychology I totally love. But also, it has gotten ridiculous out there. And I think that's doing a lot of damage. So I'm going to address that when I see it. You know, like the people who are chanting numbers that are secret codes that are supposed to bring you prosperity, love, weight loss, transport you to the ninth dimension, all by repeating a series of numbers over and over. By the way, I have seen 0 results from that. And yet I've seen people waste a number of years on it. So yes, I'm going to speak out about it, and you are welcome to have your own experience about it. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and also saying, wow, look at this tree. Also saying, I'm looking at all the recovery work I've had to do with people who believe in that sort of stuff. And 5-10 years later, they kind of wake up with a child with mental health problems or finding themselves in a deep hole of insanity where they're going to yet one more workshop to try to feel better for a little while. All right, I'm going to go talk to this tree for a while. Amazing. See you later.